Hey guys, it's me, Lily Rose here. And, I've been going round and round in my heart and my head, in prayer about where are we going in the Word of God because we never stop reading it, right? We're supposed to dive into its pages every day. Um, and I felt like, well, we've gone through a lot of the basics, the Gospels, we've gone through Acts, we've gone through Romans, we've gone through Galatians, Ephesians, Colossians. Um, I think we've even hit on James and a few others like that. We've done Revelation, which is amazing. And then we've done Genesis. We've done, Ezekiel and Daniel and Psalms and Job and Esther and Ruth. We've done a lot of those books. And I was really like, Lord, I don't know where I'm supposed to go from here. But there's a series of books that I've been reading lately that take place during the time of Judges and into the era of First and Second Kings. I don't know if you knew this, but in the time before King Saul and King David, they looked to the Lord and they looked to priests for their guidance because they would go to God directly. So God was their king and their leader. And so whether they followed him or not, which we know that following the Israelites, often they did not, but he was the one who governed them and helped them to know the way to go. But then the Israelites kind of looked at the countries and the people around them as they're taking over these different lands in the promised land, as they're defeating people and taking over the land, that they had kings. And what were these kings, right? And of course, we always want what we don't have. And so I've just been really into these historical novels right now about that time era. And I said, well, Lord, am I crazy? But we haven't done the book of Judges. And I would really like to just dive into the book of Judges with you guys in these up and coming weeks. Of course, we will pause for Christmas, although we should be celebrating that Christmas story all the time, not just in December. But we will pause for that, and I will ensure that there are New Testament passages sprinkled within to break it up, because I know this is not everybody's cup of tea. But these books are important because they show us history. They show us where things were versus where they are now since Jesus came. And we see Jesus throughout it, so they're important, and we don't want to neglect scriptures. So we will be diving into the book of Judges. And I thought I would just read this little excerpt that's in my Bible right before you begin the book. So it says, the book of Judges tells the stories of the judges, the inspired leaders who rescued Israel time and time again. During this period, the people were unfaithful to God's covenant, and God allowed their enemies to oppress them. Israel repeatedly turned to the Lord for help, and the Lord repeatedly sent charismatic judges to lead Israel. These powerful leaders did amazing things, but they were unable to transcend Israel's anarchy and lawlessness. Israel needed a leader whose authority could give them national coherence and unity. Now in mine it says, after Moses died, the Israelites campaigned under Joshua, provided the desert nomads with the settled lands, but hardly a settled society. That would take hundreds of years with emergence of a stable monarchy under King David, but Moses and Joshua did leave the Israelites with an organized society. According to biblical texts, the tribal structure was well established and the lands were clearly apportioned. So guys, Moses and Joshua were acting as that monarchy. The people of Israel thought, oh, we need kings to do this down the road, right? And people may look at this and read and say, oh, they just needed a king. So when they got that monarchy and things settled, but that's not necessarily true, because all these lands, if we remember in Exodus and in Deuteronomy and other books before Joshua, the book of Joshua, we've done Joshua, guys. where the lands were proportioned by tribe, and there were rules and there were things expected of everybody. So there was a government and laws to abide by and all of that. So don't be mistaken that that wasn't present. It says, according to biblical texts, the tribal structure was well established and the lands were clearly apportioned. A few central shrines, Gilgal, Shiloh, and had emerged with leaders that included priests, Levites, and tribal elders who brought Israel a degree of order. The people continued to remember the old tradition. The covenant promise to Abraham, the sojourn from Egypt, from which Israel had been rescued by divine strength, the desert wandering, and the ratification of the covenant. But something was still lacking. According to Judges, Israel's shortcoming had two sources. First, the prologues, chapter 1, verse 1 through 2, verse 5, and 2, verse 6 through 3, verse 6, explained that the tribes failed to possess their allotted territories because they capitulated to the norms of Canaan rather than adhering to the divine covenant given under Moses. So they took some of their laws, traditions, and values and decided to couple them with Canaan's instead of eradicating Canaan's and living under what the Lord their God had told them to. The second issue looms large in Epilogues, chapter 17, verse 1 through 21, verse 25, and it's summarized in the repeated sentence, in those days Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. This highlights Israel's unfaithfulness to God. The epilogues are concerned with a failed social structure. The Age of Heroes could not produce the stable political institution required for implementing God's rule over the children of Israel. The book of Judges does not, however, reject the principle of charismatic leadership embodied in the Judges. The Judges' inspiration came at God's initiative and fulfilled God's purpose in leading and saving Israel. The stories celebrate the principles of heroic leadership, making it clear that the Achilles heel of the era was not in the divinely inspired leaders, but in the sinfulness of the people's hearts, which had to be addressed by a different form of governance. In those days, something was missing. And so with that, guys, tomorrow we will be diving into the first chapter of Judges. How true is that today, right? It's not about what president we have or what leader we have or what king England has or whatever. It's the hearts of the people, and the hearts of the people are evil. And so I think this would be a very appropriate book for us to wander through in the upcoming weeks. So I ask that you would pray and ask the Lord to open your heart to hear from his word throughout this book. I love you all.